All right, again, this is your book, ASP.NET MVC with Entity Framework and CSS by Mr. Lee Naylor. Here is a quick synopsis of the chapters that are in here. Here's the first 15. We are going to go over today Chapter 1 and Chapter 2. I don't think we'll go over every chapter in this book. Let's just see how it goes. All right. Tomorrow, remember, you have your next test, your next hands-on test, and it's on stored procedures. We should be able to get done with this stuff by 3, and then I'll do a couple. I've been asked to do a couple of those problems, so I'll do those. All right. So. If I have not already told you, I very well could have, but I don't remember. In this book, what Lee Naylor, the author, does is he calls this thing the Baby Superstore. And basically, it's an online store that's got baby products, clothes, and all sorts of other stuff. All right. So I'm on Chapter 1. There'll be things in here I don't remember for sure, but you correct me, so correct me if I'm wrong. Last year, I think, at the end of the semester, for everybody except Colin, who wasn't in the class, but I believe we went over a very simple model view controller example. All I did was basically have you create a model view controller example, you know. But you might say, no, you didn't, or I don't remember it. It's fine either way, because we're going to literally start from the beginning right now. All right. So if you look here on page 1, and again, it's not my idea here to read to you. I don't want to read to you. But if you look up on the screen or in your book, you have to understand the 3 components. All right. Models are actually 2 different things. They're classes. Everybody hear me? Do you remember what the difference is in C# between a class and, for example, a form file? Do you remember that? You do. What is it? Well, that's part of it, but the big thing is classes are code only. They have no interface. None. All right? So it says here the classes model the data of the application. That's true. All right? They also typically have not just the data of the application, but quite often what you end up putting in the models are also the business logic. Now, I've said this term before. You may or may not remember it. You may or may not understand it. But think about this. At the beginning of the semester, not to put these 2 guys on display, but if you remember the first day, Colin and Andrew had to go over to the other building and talk to Jeremy Sutton about costs or whatever, correct? And I remember coming back, and Andrew gave me a piece of paper, and Colin said, well, I have to pay tonight or they're going to move me out. Okay? The point is, technically, that's true, right? If you wouldn't have paid, now, I wouldn't have stopped you from still coming, but the school, sooner or later, if somebody found out, they would have made you leave. Because the rule here is, if you want to sit in on class every day, that you have to pay for the class. That's a business rule. All right, that's an example of a business rule. Some businesses, you know, their rules, they literally have them, they might even be on their website. All right. Views are going to generally be HTML. And controllers, you got to look at it this way. And again, I know I've shown you stuff like this before, but if you are writing model view controller code and you're writing it correctly, and if you look at it that, for example, this is the controller, this is the model, and this is a view. All right? A URL comes in to the controller. The controller typically figures out which model to call. All right? The model returns some kind of data to the controller, and then the controller goes and calls the correct view. Does that make sense? But notice where there is no arrow. If you are writing model view controller code correctly, there should be no direct communication between the model and the view, ever, for any reason. Now, That's kind of like, yesterday I was just saying that my wife and I drove to Springfield, Illinois, and back. All right. And, well, I shouldn't say we drove, she drove. And typically I have her drive because I'm going, 89, 90 miles an hour coming back. But yesterday she was going about 85. All right. So the business rule, I mean, what I'm saying is you're supposed to follow rules, right? You're supposed to follow a speed limit. It says 70. All right. But that doesn't mean that people always do it. In the same way, there's no model view controller cops that if you do have the model communicate directly with view, you can still get it to work. It's just not recommended that you do that. That's all. So again, the idea is the URL comes in, okay, and literally it comes in first to what's called a router. All right, and the router basically will send it to the controller, and the controller will figure out what to do with it next. All right. The author he actually does a pretty good job in here of talking about a bunch of stuff. I mean, he says the main principles behind MVC are to build an application that's architected in distinct layers, it's testable, and it's maintainable. All right? Okay. Now, the next thing I want to tell you is almost going to sound, well, maybe it will at least, sound confusing. It says here, entity framework and code first. When you create this stuff, you've got your choice. You can do code first, or you can do database first. So what's the difference? The difference is, let's suppose that Anthony has no idea what SQL is or how to use it and doesn't want to learn. All right? Then he can go and he can write classes. He can write ASP.NET classes, and literally, if they're modeled like that, he can run some commands and they will create the database for him. So in other words, when you do code first, you don't have to know anything at all about the database because everything will be created for you. There's also database first, which is just the opposite. You've got a database and you create the classes based off of the existing database. All right? What we're going to end up using this semester is the entity framework, and it's typically called the EF. And it says there that it's an object relational mapping framework. Again, what we're going to end up using quite a bit this semester is something that's called scaffolding. You may or may not have remembered the term. I did use it a little bit last semester. All right? But what will happen as we're doing this is at least at times, some of the code, the beginning of the code, the framework will be built for us by us clicking a couple buttons. All right? Okay. Software required for web development. Well, we've got it. All right, we're using Visual Studio 2017. This book expects that you are using MVC5. MVC5 is not the latest and the greatest. When this book was written, MV6 was in beta mode, so they put a chapter in the book on MVC6. This is an MVC5 book. And there have been pretty many changes in MVC6. There have been. That said, if you understand MVC5, you should have no problem learning MVC6. All right. So let's do this. If you would, everybody, start up Visual Studio. We don't care. I mean, we've been working with a database now because Matt told me he just hates databases. So we're gonna forget about databases for a while. Okay. In fact, I'm gonna even close my Server Explorer window. And I'm gonna close that one. There. And what I'll do is I'll bring up my toolbox. There. I'm not gonna use it, but I'll bring it up anyway. So there's something up there. All right. So we're right here, right? I want us to start up a new project. So I want us to do a file, new project. And just stop, if you would, right there. Yours may or may not look like mine, but If you're not there, make sure you're under Visual C#, and under Visual C#, make sure you're under Web. All right? So move there if you have to move there. Does yours now look like mine? Is there anyone who does not look like mine? It's still loading? Well, then it's not that it doesn't look like it, you just don't know. Tell me when it's up. All right. Now we have to wait for Andrew. But if you look on the screen, what you all can do, we're going to create a project. As they show it on page 3, we're going to call it Baby Store. One word. So run baby and store together with a big B and a big S. And why don't you just save it to your desktop? All right. Okay. I know why it's doing that, but I don't know why it's doing that. All right. So again, we'll wait for a second. So we're creating a new project under Visual C# Web. We're choosing ASP.NET Web Application .NET Framework. Just so you know, if you create any new projects in here, you'll always choose that one. Do not ever choose ASP.NET Core Web App. That's MVC6. All right? So call it Baby Store, one word. Save. Make sure it's on your make sure that it's on your desktop. We don't care right now about adding the source control. If we did, we could put that in. I don't really care about that right now. So if your screen looks like this, just click OK. Now, as you can see, we're not done yet. The system, when you look, if you look up on the screen here, if we wanted to create an empty project that had virtually just about nothing in it, we choose that. Okay, this is what we did last semester, right? That's what we chose, was web forms. This web API, we're not even going to talk about. This is a SPA, a single page web application. We're not going to do anything with that either. We're not going to do anything with Azure. And if you look up on the screen here, we're always going to be choosing MVC, which should choose and put the check mark right there, always. Now, we don't have to right now add unit tests, but if we were going to do unit testing, we would just check right there. And this thing that was grayed out, that says babystore.test, would no longer be grayed out. The only difference between choosing this and not choosing that is if you choose it and you create the project, which is what we're going to do in a second, it'll create a folder called tests. All right, we don't care right now about unit tests. We're just getting started. So you can leave it unchecked, but make sure it's MVC. Make sure that's checked before you click OK. All right, look under the change authentication, and you'll notice there are 4 types. In the first type that is shown there, no authentication. If you choose that, your entire project is public. Everything that's in there is public. Almost always, you'll never want to change. You'll never want to choose that. Virtually always, you will never want to choose that. All right? The second one, which is the one we're going to choose, is individual user accounts. Notice for applications that store profiles in an SQL Server database. But the big thing is, if you look at that, you can also hook it in pretty easily to Facebook, Twitter, etc. I don't know if you guys have ever done that, but a lot of times I'll go out for some, for some software, and it'll ask me to either register or it says, do you want to continue as Facebook? All right, maybe you've seen that, maybe you haven't seen that. I don't know. All right. The next one where it says work or school accounts, that's if you're working with Active Directory and Azure or else Office 365. We're not. So we wouldn't choose that. The Windows authentication is typically, as it says there, if you have an intranet application. We don't have that. We're going to choose individual user account, and we're going to click OK. So it should now look like this, and it's the same way that it looks in figure 1-2 on page 4. So MVC and individual user accounts. Questions? Yes.
Mine, whenever I click like OK on the first one, the only option it gives me is an empty one. They don't have options to them.
Well, let's see if we can make it work by choosing MVC and still go in there and no. So you do have to have something missing. I guess goofy as it sounds for now, I Google it because there probably is some kind of an update file. So if you added it, I would guess it's going to work. And if for some reason it doesn't, I mean, I don't want us to go through, remember how long it took some of these to download. And I don't really want to go through that again. We can help it. All right, everybody else is cool though? It all looks like this? All right, then just click OK. The magic will happen, and if you look in your Solution Explorer on the right, which is now empty in just a minute, it won't be. All right, there's the magic, as you see right now, okay? Now, a couple things. First of all, they just recently changed this. This is new right here, this start screen. You'll probably never need that, so I can just close it. All right? But what I want you to see are two things. First of all, if you look up on your screen, I hope yours looks like mine once you close that. Notice you've got a lot of stuff in there. Let's take it from the top. All right? The properties and the references, those are all system files. You'll typically never have to dink with these. Right here. App data, that's for Mr. Purcell because that's where you put your databases. All right, so app data, if we wanted to create our own database in there, notice if I right mouse click on the folder, I can go to add, and I can go to, where is it? I can go to new item, and I might have to search a little bit to SQL Server, and I can actually, it'll take a second, but I actually can go in there and add a new database that way. All right, we're not going to do that. Notice database1.mdf down here. We don't care. I just wanted to show you that. App start. We're going to look at that in just a minute. There are some files in there. Again, they are system files. The one file that's there, at least one in there that you might want to change is routeconfig.cs. We're going to look at that in just a minute. All right. The next one that's in there. These projects are set up kind of weird, and don't ask me why. They just are. Okay. Notice it's given you under content. That's where your CSS goes. When you create the project, it gives you Bootstrap for free. All right. The other thing, or two things. First of all, see this file on the bottom, site CSS. See that? That's your file. It gives you this stuff by default. You can remove any of that. You can add to it. You can do whatever it is you have to do. All right. But the second thing is, if we have images, which we will eventually have, images go in the content folder. So you right mouse click on here, you choose add, and you choose new folder, and you'll type in images. Why they put images in the content area as opposed to giving them their own area, I don't know, but I'm telling you, showing you the standard way of doing things. All right. Next, controllers. If I open this up, notice there's 3 controllers: account, home, and manage. Everybody see those? The reason that we've got the first one and the last one, the account one and the manage one, the reason we have those two controllers is because we chose individual user authentication. If we chose no authentication when we did this to begin with, if we had chosen no authentication, all we would have there would be a home controller. Did everybody hear that? Notice too, this is again just a class file. There will be no interface in any of these. Not only that, please look up on the screen, everybody. I don't care where you are, just take a look. For every one of these, when you create the controllers, the system comes in and creates a matching one for the views. I didn't mean to open up that file. But notice, account controller, account folder for views. Home controller, home for views. A manage controller, manage for views. So if I were to come in here, I'm not going to do it right now. We'll do some of this later. But if I came through here and I right mouse clicked, hell, I can do it. It's not going to hurt anything. And I clicked add controller, and I came in here. Let's just say I wanted an empty controller. And I come in. By default, controllers always end with the word controller. But if I come in here and I write in Jeff's controller, all right, and I click add, notice what happens over here. First of all, there's Jeff's controller, and there's the Jeff's down here. See that? The reason I'm showing you that, the reason I'm telling you that, is if you create a controller, and, oh, I don't want Jeff's controller, and you right mouse click and you choose delete, it'll remove it. It does not automatically remove the associated view file. You have to manually go in there and remove that. If you go in and first manually remove the view file, it doesn't remove the controller. All right, so even though they work with one another, technically, all right, they're not, I mean, although they're associated with one another, one does not, removing one does not remove the other. Hopefully that made sense. All right, looking at the rest of the stuff that's in here. Under fonts, see this? There's a bunch of Glyphicon files. I believe, I could be wrong, but I don't think I am. The version of Bootstrap that they're working with in here is version 3.3 something. Version 4 is the newest. Why is that important? Because in version 4 of Bootstrap, Glyphicons have been removed. Instead of using Glyphicons, you're supposed to go out to Font Awesome and use their icons out there because the quality is better, they load faster, and they're supposedly better. Under models, right now you may or may not be able to tell this. All right, we've got again an account view model, an identity view model, and a manage view model. But if I bring one of those up, again, just code. All right, and also notice there's not the same thing because under controllers we had account, home, and manage. But if you look here, we've got an account and we've got a manage. We don't have a home. See that? There's nothing that says that the mapping between models and controllers will be the same, just so you know that. Then after that, we've got scripts. That's where your jQuery and your JavaScript files go. All right? Not only that, what you'll learn later as we go through there is you can do kind of special stuff with these files. You can do what's called bundling, B-U-N-D-L-I-N-G. You'll learn how to bundle later, all right? Then we've got, after scripts, we've got views. I already showed you these, all right? So there's account, and you'll notice there's a bunch of stuff in there. That's all the stuff, again, look on the screen. That's all the stuff that got created for us when we chose individual user authentication. That was all created for us. All right. Same thing under manage. That was all created for us. The home right now is virtually, it's almost empty. Okay, we're going to go look at what's in there in just a minute, but it's almost empty. And please look up on the screen here. Did you notice too, I'm going to close this. See this file, view start? All right, look at that. And it's like, what the hell is that? All right, we're going to talk about that. If you start a file with an @ sign like this, okay, this file, look up on the screen there. Can you see it? It says view start, meaning it's a system file, .cshtml. What that means is it's an HTML file you can put C# into. That's literally what it stands for. All right, we're going to look at that in just a minute. All right, there's all the rest of the files that are in here are system files. But please look up on the screen because this is the most important thing so far. Later on in this lecture or in the next chapter, we're going to go in and we're going to create a database without having to do much. We're just going to create it in code. All right? When we do that, you're going to be told to go in and change your web.config file. You look up on the screen, there's 2 of them. Make sure if you're told to change the global web.config file, always change that one. Don't change the other one. The other one is just for your views. They're not the same file. All right, and it's an error a lot of people make is they choose the wrong one. All right, so we went through, we did this, Baby Store, we named it, chose MVC, or at least 4 of us did. We just went over what these files that are in here, most of them at least, are about. All right, so like I said, and I'm not trying to poke fun at you, but other than Tony, everybody else here, you're right here basically, correct? All right. Let's go and under views, let's find home, and then let's click on index, which will bring it up over here. We're going to go over that file in just a minute. All right. When you bring yours up, it should look like mine. All right. Remember how to run these? We click the green arrow that's right here. Remember this? So just click the green arrow to run. It's not going to do much because it's just what you get right out of the box, so to speak. Now, a couple things about this, just so you hear all of them, all right? First thing, my guess is on most of you, if I said how many of yours after localhost, how many of yours say 53388, my guess is none of yours would say that. The system picks a random port on your machine to run this. Did you hear that? You aren't even guaranteed that if you run it again, it's going to use that port. It's possible it could change. You know, if you stop the run and start it again, it might be a different port. It usually keeps the same port for every session, so while you're logged in, but there's no guarantee that it will. All right. Now the next thing, and this is where you have to start understanding this. You all see where it says home index? Okay, everybody see that? What that says is I want to run the index.html file or CS.html file that's under home. Okay? Now, I'm going to show you a couple things that almost sound weird. First of all, you don't have to do this, but if you look up on the screen, I'm going to remove all this and just put my random port there. Everybody see that? And I'm going to hit enter. And what happened? Sounds like a trick question. Nothing. Because it goes to home index by default. Look again. I'm going to come back here. And I'm going to put in /home. And it's not case sensitive. It can be all caps, mixed case, lowercase. But I'm going to do that. I'm going to hit enter again. What happened? Nothing. All right. So why am I showing it to you? All right. If you look, I'm going to stop the run, but if you look right here, remember I said this file at the beginning, this file that's under app start, there's a thing here that's called route config. You don't have to go to it, but I want you to look at what's on the screen here. This says, by default, it's expecting everything you do is going to be based off of your home controller. And if you don't provide an action, it says run the index.cs HTML file. That's why you can either just run it, or you can run it with a /home, or you can run it with a /home/index. Any of them will work. Does that make sense? All right. The ID we'll look at in a bit, but it just says that you can optionally pass an ID. We're not. Now, again, if you would please, look up on the screen. I'm going to run this again. Yours might still be running. It doesn't matter one way or the other. But please, if you look up on the screen here. All right. You already know this because we already looked at it. It's /home/index. You've already seen that. But look on the screen. Why it did that, but it did. All right, let me go back to it again. I shouldn't have been playing with it, but okay. I'm going to click About. Please look up on the screen here. Notice how it says /home/about. It does that home by default because that's the only controller that's listed in that file that we just looked at. That's the only controller. So it defaults to home. In fact, notice if I come here. Now it's home contact. So if I wanted this to be running this off of a different controller, I'd have to go back into the file that I have here, and I'd have to add more of these. Does that make sense? All right. So again, what they don't mention in most books, your model view controller. Yeah, the controller's the traffic cop. It makes sure that the model and the view can get their stuff done. Yeah, that's true. But the whole essence of using MVC is it is a routing mechanism. And all we have for our routing mechanism right now is, hey, unless you're told otherwise, the only thing that's in here is a home controller. And unless you're told otherwise, the action is index. You saw that change when we clicked contact because the action then wasn't index, it was contact. All right. Now, again, look up on the screen if you would, please. So I'm going to go back down here, and under views, I'm going to find this index file. There it is. Everybody see this? All right. So I'm going to start going through it. The first thing that's there is an @ sign, and then inside of curly braces, it says viewbag.title = homepage. Yours should say the same thing. We haven't changed any code yet. The view bag is, this is a terrible, well, I'm just going to say it. Just imagine that it's a bag. You could put anything in the world you want in it, and it'll hold it. It doesn't matter what it is. So if it was it'll accommodate. So if I had this bag around my house, I could stick my car in it. If I was cleaning up my dog's poop, I could put that in it. I can put anything I want into it. All right? That said, it should only be used for things, by and large, that are small in size. What you're going to learn very quickly is when you start to put in a lot of information, ViewBag kind of breaks down because it's not designed to hold a lot of stuff. It's just designed to hold a few things. Now, one thing about it, look up on the screen if you would, please. For now, I'm going to remove it. It's dynamic. What does that mean? If I hit a period, there's no IntelliSense. The system itself doesn't really have a grasp of what ViewBag is. So, it doesn't matter if you've got stuff in there. You can't say ViewBag dot something and have the system pick it up. It just won't do it. All right. The other thing is with this, if I'm going to put in one or more lines of code, if I start a line with this right here, see this line, line 1 and line 3? If I put code between those two things, I can put as many lines in as I want. What it's saying is, hey, you're an HTML file, break out and run some C# code. Does that make sense? Now, when you look at this stuff, this doesn't look very different, from what we did in the AWD class, AWD1111 class. Now, notice here it says ASP.NET. We don't care here. We're going to change this to Baby Store. You can change yours. All right, so just change it to Baby Store. And it's H1, so you can put a space in it. And we're going to get rid of this paragraph that we have here, and we're just going to replace it with welcome. You have to spell it right. Welcome to the ASP.NET Baby Store. All right. And we'll come in here just so you see this, and it's no big thing. Notice here it says getting started. I'm going to change that to, let's see, close. And I'm just going to put in a simple sentence. The ASP.NET Baby Store carries all types of baby clothes. All right. Next, I'm going to go down where the next one is that says get more libraries. I'm going to change that from get more libraries to toys. And I'm going to put the paragraph in there that says the ASP.NET Baby Store carries all types of baby toys. Then we've got one more that says web hosting, and I'm going to remove that, and I'm just going to type in miscellaneous products. And I'm going to say the ASP.NET Baby Store carries all types of miscellaneous baby products. If I went too fast, don't worry about it. This is just some garbage that we're putting in here. Okay? So if you put all that in, save it. You're best off clicking the double disk icon and run it again. All right. Can you see what's changed here? It's got Baby Store here now. It's got this. So we changed the stuff that was in there. We changed all of this also. Should have said miscellaneous products, not product, but I don't care. The point is, we can go in at any time and we can change that page. Does that make sense? All right, I'm going to stop the run. And first thing I want to do is I want to change it to products, not product. But the next thing I want to do, if you look on your screen here, is I want you to open up the one that says about.cshtml. You notice anything? Is that what came up when we ran that program? Run your program again. And click the about. Tell me if there's anything else in there other than this. Yes? No? Let's run it. I'll just click the about button. Or the about link. There's the about your application description page, etc. All this Good stuff, right? All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a print screen, and so I can keep it up here. That's for my wife. So let's see. Let me start that again. All right. So that's what's there right now. I think everybody'd agree. I just took a picture of it. All right. So I'm going to stop the run. And notice we got viewbag.title, which is that about, but viewbag.message. How does it know to not print out the word message or viewbag.message? All right. The answer is that's got to be set someplace. Okay. So let's look, for example, let's look under viewstart.cshtml. Okay. You're like, I don't think it's there. Yeah, believe it or not, it is. This file right here, if you look up either on the screen or on your machines, this file says that by default, unless told otherwise, we want all the layouts to be based off of a file that's under the view shared folder that's called _layout.cshtml. So if we open that one, so we've got to go under views, we've got to open the shared folder, and we've got to find layout _cshtml and open that. Whoa, there's a lot of stuff in there. See that? That says this is all of the stuff that this basically it's going to share. All right. And I show you a line in here that looks pretty innocent, but the line that makes this whole thing happen, please look up on the screen here. See this line right here? That line in blue? That's the line that makes everything happen. The render body says, okay, it looks at the page that it's on and it says, okay, I'm going to go and render it based on that page. So it's smart enough to know what to do based on the page that it's on. That wasn't the greatest of explanations, but at least hopefully it makes a little sense to you. And let's face it, we're just starting on this. So I wouldn't, if you said, yeah, it totally makes sense, I'd say, well, you're probably BSing me. All right. So let's finish this chapter. We've got about 4 or 5 more pages, then we'll take a break. All right, so I'm on page 6. You saw this. This is what it looked like at first. We went back and changed it to ASP.NET Baby Store. All right. And we changed the getting started to, whatever it was, baby clothes or clothes, and etc. But you saw this when we started, in other words. All right. So if we look underneath that, this is what I tried to explain to you before, but I want to go through it again, because this stuff is fundamental to you learning and understanding what's going on here. All right? So it says the home page is automatically shown because the website made a request to the URL /home/index. You know that if we give it that URL and we say /home/index, all right, so we've got that port number here. Or if we say port number just /home, or if we just say port number. If we do any of these 3, it brings up the home page. That's what the author is trying to tell you right here. All right? I'll let you read that as you get time or have the desire to do so. Now, on the next page here, because again, it's fundamental stuff, but it's stuff you have to understand. If you look, I'm down toward the bottom of the page. All right, it says ignoring the links for register and login, the other 2 links, it says we've got our about and contact. All right, and it says they target /home/about and /home/contact. Please look up on the screen. It's telling it to run that file, or that method, I should say, that about method, or it's telling it to run that method. All right? Now, notice where it says here, your application description page and your contact page. Everybody see those? Notice that when I run this, your application description page, your contact page. Those two lines, it's literally getting those two lines from in here. All right. Now, notice contact.cshtml. That's under the view. That's this stuff. We didn't want Microsoft's address. We're not going to do that. You could put your own address in there or whatever. The point is, if you look at this file that's right here, if you look at this file, it's index.cshtml. It's a CSHTML file, a C# hypertext markup language file for 3 reasons. Reason number 1, we're setting the title in lines 1, 2, and 3. And we're doing that using C# and the viewBag object. Lines 4 and 5. Now we're telling it to display the title, and we're telling it to display that message. All right? And that message that it's displaying, it's not even, it's being set in a different file. All right? So if we go in and look at about, same thing. All right? What I want you to understand about this is we are going to use some files in here, like the layout file, where we're going to be able to combine information together. And the system will be smart enough to know what to call based on the routing path that it's been given. /home or /home index or /home/about or /home/contact. And as we get in here and we write more complex programs, there'll be other controllers, not just home. All right? Last thing to tell you about this section. If you look up on the screen one more time, please. Again, you may have noticed this, you may not have. I don't know. But when we run this, see these two things over here? We got those because we chose individual user authentication. So I'm going to go in and register. Okay? And email jpscott@rankin.edu. That looks good. Password, I'm just going to type in, I think it's got to be 8 characters. H-E-L-L, oops, try it again. H-E-L-L-0123, comma. H-E-L-L-0123, comma. And I'm telling it to register. So passwords must have at least one uppercase. I didn't put any in. Capital H-E-L-L-0123, comma. Capital H-E-L-L-0123, comma. All right, register. Says, do you want to save it? I mean, that's always your call. I'll say, sure, save. All right. Do you see how the register changed? Everybody see that? How it says hello? All right. So it's let me register, and it's basically not only registered me, it's logged me in. So if I want to get off, I just, no, this before said log in. Now it says log off because I am logged in. I click log off, it goes back to register. All right. All that stuff is basically freebie for you, for lack of better words, based off of the fact that we chose individual authentication or user authentication. All right. All right. On pages 8 and 9, I don't have to go over these. Why? Because we already did. So if you look up on your screen here or in your book, on pages 8 and 9, the author says here, routing, how the website knows which controllers and methods to request. And it's saying, you go into this file. That's the one I already showed you. All right? So you've already looked at that. All right. Now, the last thing that's in here, look on the screen again. Whoops, this. It's saying that you can put an ID in there. So we're going to do that. We're just going to follow the steps in the book. If you would, please, go back up and open. All right. So go back to here, go to our controller, all right, and under our controller, right there, the home controller, okay, we've got this, public action result about. Everybody see this on your screen? Can you get there? Hopefully, look up on the screen here, please. Hopefully you realize something, and that is, there's nothing being passed into there, right? It's just an empty set of parentheses. So they want us to change this to string ID. That ID that we're passing in, that ID that's right there, is going to end up being this ID that's right there. All right? So we're back into our home controller. All right. But now, if I try to run this, I get an error message. All right. Actually, I wouldn't, but depending on how I called it, I might. Let's see if I get an error message. So I'm going to save this. Okay. And remember before what we did. Okay. Before we came in here, and after this, we put in slash, oh, not there, yeah, slash home, slash index, that, well, not index, index, and that gave us our home page, right? Nothing's changed there. So I'm going to say slash home slash about. I didn't get an error. And guess what? You should all be able to tell me why I didn't get an error. I'll give you a hint. It's in this file. It's because I didn't put in a string. All right. But since I said it was a string and I didn't pass anything, it automatically put in the empty string for me. Now, what if I do this? Instead of string here, what if I put in int ID like this and I run it again? Now, when I come in here, I want to put in slash home slash about. Will that work? You're all going to get that error at one time or another. And you look at it, it's like, oh my God. It's like, what the hell is all that? Well, it's right here. The parameters dictionary contains a null entry for parameter ID, and it's expecting an int 32. So if I run it again, all right, and I just put in here about slash 44, I don't know. It works. It's just looking for an integer. That's all. And what the author has told us to do is we should have come in here then, and after we said your application page, then they wanted us to put in another sentence that said, you entered ID plus the ID. All right. So if we do that, again, I'm going to hold this, I'm going to save, and I'm going to run this. You just saw the fact that when we do this, come on, slash home slash about, we get the error. And you also saw that if we came in here and put in the number, you entered ID 44. All right? Then the last thing about that, please look up on the screen. I'm going to make this a string again. So I'm going to say string ID. System doesn't care what kind of information it is. So I'm going to run this. And again, I'm going to come in here and leave it blank. So I'm going to say /home/about. Hit enter. Notice it just says you entered ID, and it is the empty string that it put there. That's why it worked. The reason I'm going over, I'm not trying to waste my time. I'm not trying to waste your time. But I do want you to understand that what you put in here and what you end up putting in here, that's important based on what type you're using. That's all. All right. Last two things, and we're taking a break. Thank God. Page 10. The purpose of the layout page. All right. Page 10. The author says, you may have noticed that when we navigate to different pages, the website shows the same heading and the same navigation. Right? Our header on top and our footer on the bottom are the same. Everybody agree with that? That's because that header and that footer are set in our layout file. All right? And that's in our underscore layout.cshtml. They're set in here. All right? There's our heading, and there's our footer. So if we want to add things and we want every page to look the same, we only have to add it in one spot. All right? Which is why they did it that way. Most server-side languages operate like this. PHP does it pretty much the same way. Okay? So the author says, regarding that, on page 11, the author says, if you open this file, you will see it contains HTML elements containing the site navigation. Guess what? The code that's in there, that's part of the view in the model view controller. So far, you've seen the controller, which returned the view. We haven't talked about the model yet, but you've seen two of the three components already. Now, they give you this tip on the bottom of page 11. Kind of important if you look at that. Bottom of page 11. It says, if you want a view not to use the specified page, then add an entry at the top that says layout equal null at the top of the file. The reason you might want to do that is, for example, if it's an error page. You may not want to have links to all your other pages from the error page. All right? So they will all share that by default. If you don't want them to, you can change it. All right. So that was chapter 1. I made this probably longer than it had to be, but my hope is that going through all that stuff, it made some sense to you. All right. So it's 1:36. Let's take a break. Let's come back. Let's make it like 1:50, please.